Night is not our beginning, nor our end. She is the dark mother in whose womb we have hid, safe from too swift awaking to world pain.
Good morning. We've come to the top of page 601 in Book 10, the Book of the Double Twilight, Canto 1, the Dream Twilight of the Ideal. So we've begun going through this canto. Savitri has already entered into the depths of the darkness of the void, and she has brought with her some light of her soul deep into that chasm, and that pale light has persisted through the darkness, and it's beginning to, let's say, assail or lighten that darkness into a early twilight, into a dim light. I'll just read a little bit from page 599, in the beginning of the canto, a little ways down. An ineffectual beam of suffering light through the despairing darkness dogged their steps, like the remembrance of a glory lost. Even while it grew, it seemed unreal there, yet haunted Nihil's chill, stupendous realm, unquenchable, perpetual, lonely, null, a pallid ghost of some dead eternity. It was as if she must pay now her debt, her vain presumption to exist and think, to some brilliant Maya that conceived her soul. This most she must absolve with endless pangs, her deep original sin, the will to be, and the sin last, greatest, the spiritual pride that made of dust equaled itself with heaven. Its scorn of the worm writhing in the mud, condemned, ephemeral, born from nature's dream. Refusal of the transient creature's role. The claim to be a living fire of God. The will to be immortal and divine. So let's continue on the second line of page 601. Naren, you can begin.
The part you had read, he is talking about the light of Savitri, and he says uncontrollable, perpetual, lonely. I understand that, but he also says null.
Yeah.
So that null is a bit of
But
difficult to understand.
But in the line before
Yeah.
what you read, it says,
Haunted.
yet haunted,
Yes.
nihil's chill stupendous realm.
Yeah.
That's what he's referring to in the next line.
Okay. He's talking of nihil and not her light.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. The inconscient world is the spirit's self-made room, eternal light, night, shadow of eternal day. Night is not our beginning, not our end. She is a dark mother in whose womb we have hid, safe from too swift awaking to world pain. We came to her from a supernal light. By light we live, and to the light we go. Here in this seat of darkness, mute and lone, in the heart of everlasting nothingness, light conquered now even by that feeble beam. Its faint infiltration drilled the blind, deaf mass. Almost it changed into a glimmering sight that housed the phantom of an orate sun, whose orb pupilled the eye of nothingness. A golden fire came in and burnt night's heart. Her dusky mindlessness began to dream. The inconscient conscious grew. Night felt and thought. Assailed in the sovereign emptiness of its reign, the intolerant darkness paled and drew apart till only a few black remnants stained that ray. But on a failing edge of dumb lost space, still a great dragon body sullenly loomed, adversary of the slow struggling dawn, defending its ground of tortured mystery. It trailed its coils through the dead martyred air, and curving fled down a great slope of time.
Thank you. This short canto is all in the words of the narrator of the poem. And in this first part, he's explaining the nature of the inconscient and its deeper reality. So in this particular passage in particular, it explains that in those first lines. The inconscient world is the spirit's self-made room, eternal night, shadow of eternal day. So he's giving us the deeper reality of it, that it's a reflection of the light, of the divine, a dark reflection, a shadow. And then he says, it's not our beginning nor our end. She is the dark mother in whose womb we have hid, safe from too swift a waking to world pain. This inconscient, so out of that inconscient all arises, evolves, comes out of that. But that inconscient itself is a shadow of the light, of the divine, of the divine.
Well, if you look at it a little more literally, nothing can live, nothing can grow, for example, from earth. No plant can grow at most. Plants can grow from seed, but from root. They're in the dark.
Right.
They're in the earth.
Right.
And from that, within that they're held, and they're held in a safe way, so that when there's moisture, when there's sunlight, when they can move through the earth, they can emerge.
Right.
The same thing is with a human being. You know, a human being cannot, at least as of now, in most cases, we live and our life is rooted in that dark mother.
Yeah, and he uses the image of the womb. In the womb, the fetus grows until it's ready to come out into the light. Right? Just like, the seed develops and then sprouts in the earth, and then when it's ready, it comes out. So similarly, our souls too are hid in that darkness of the ignorance, developing until we're ready to sprout into the light. But what he's emphasizing here is that it's not the darkness is not the true origin. It itself is a reflection of the light. And the soul that comes into that darkness, into the earth to evolve, it comes carrying that light of the truth within itself. And it's by that light of the soul that we live. It sustains us. Without it, we would just dissolve into the material elements. Yeah.
It's regulating our speed of evolution.
Yeah.
Low pain.
Yeah, it also holds us back. It constrains our growth, our development, until we're truly ready. And then we see how just a little light, this pallid light in that darkness, is more powerful than the darkness itself. That little faint light can lighten that darkness. So now there's a change, it seems, in the dark, in the inconscient itself. The inconscient conscious grew. Night felt and thought. Assailed in the sovereign emptiness of its reign, the intolerant darkness paled and drew apart, till only a few black remnants stain that ray. So the light conquers, it wins over that darkness, lightens it. And then there's this interesting image at the end of this dragon body, of the adversary, but on a failing edge of dumb lost space, still a great dragon body sullenly loomed, adversary of the slow, struggling dawn, defending its ground of tortured mystery. It trailed its coils through the dead, martyred air, and curving fled down a gray slope of time. In Shraddhavan, in her commentary on this, she says we have to imagine one of these great dragons flying through the sky with its long tail coiling behind, and then it curves downward, down a gray slope of time. And it suggests something of, it's still kind of holding on to its reign, unwilling to abandon it, and for a period of time that we still maybe are passing through.
It's the same image in the first page of the poetry.
Mm.
The same dragon lying across the line.
Yeah, there's some similar images in the first canto. But for now, let's continue.
There is a morning twilight of the gods. Miraculously from sleep their forms arise, and God's long nights are justified by dawn. There breaks the passion and the splendor of new birth, and the hue-winged visions stray across the lids. Heaven's chanting heralds waken dim-eyed space. The dreaming deities look beyond the scene and fashion in their thoughts the ideal worlds. Sprung from a limitless moment of desire that once had lodged in some abysmal heart. Past was the heaviness of the eyeless dark, and all the sorrow of the night was dead. Surprised by a blind joy, with groping hands, like one who wakes to find his dreams were true, into a happy mystic twilight world, where all ran after light and joy and love. She slipped. There, far off raptures drew more close, and deep anticipations of delight, forever eager to be grasped and held, were never grasped, yet breast strange ecstasy. A pearl-winged indistinctness fleeting swam, an air that dared not suffer too much light.
Thank you. So as this heavy, dark, inconscient begins to lighten, this new world emerges into sight, into vision. And it's, he calls it the dream twilight of the ideal. So it's a realm where there are these ideal forms, beautiful, in a way, very perfect. Where all ran after light and joy and love. She slipped, their far-off raptures drew more close, and deep anticipations of delight, forever eager to be grasped and held, were never grasped, yet breathed strange ecstasy. So it's a world where all these beautiful, perfect images and events and things are all fleeting, cannot really grasp them. They disappear just the instant we see them. A pearl-winged indistinctness fleeting swam an air that dared not suffer too much light. So it's this realm that's emerging out of that darkness in the very early twilight. And he'll continue to describe it, I think, through the remainder of the canto. So let's continue.
Who's this she? Where all ran after light and joy and love, she slipped. There was power of rapture, drew more close. So who is this she?
Let's see.
That is Twilight.
Yeah, it might be Savitri, he doesn't say. All he says before that, surprised by a blind joy with groping hands, like one who wakes to find his dreams were true, into a happy, misty, twilight world, where all ran after light and joy and love, she slipped. It's probably referring to Savitri, but he doesn't spell it out. Okay, let's continue.
Vague fields were there, vague pastures gleamed, vague trees, vague scenes dim-hearted in a drifting haze. Vague cattle, white, roamed glimmering through the mist. Vague spirits wandered with a bodiless cry. Vague melodies touched the soul and fled, pursued into harmonious distances unseized. Forms subtly elusive and half-luminous powers, wishing no goal for their unearthly course, strayed happily through vague, ideal lands, or floated without footing, or their walk left steps of reverie on sweet memory's ground. Or they paced to the mighty measure of their thoughts, led by a low, far chanting of the gods. A ripple of gleaming wings crossed the far sky. Birds like pale-bosomed imaginations flew with low, disturbing voices of desire, and half-heard lowings drew the listening ear, as if the sun god's brilliant kine were there, hidden in mist and passing towards the sun. These fugitive beings, these elusive shapes, were all that claimed the eye and met the soul, the natural inhabitants of that world.
Thank you. So it's a vague, vague, vague world. See how he uses that word 3 times in that first line, and then in the next 4 lines, and then further down he uses it again, strayed happily through vague ideal lands. Emphasizing this character of the world. Nothing can be seized, nothing lasts. But it's a very beautiful world. It really touches the heart, the senses in a way. And then there's also this image of a Vedic image, and half-heard lowings drew the listening ear, as if the sun god's brilliant kine were there, hidden in mist and passing towards the sun. So these lowings are the deep, low sounds of cattle. And kine are cattle.
Like village terms.
Huh?
Sun gods, kine means daughter, sons and daughters.
No, kine are cattle.
So kine is again cattle.
Yeah. So there are these images come from the Vedas, right? We know this. The cows are a symbol of light in the Veda. And here, these are the sun gods, brilliant kine. So he's bringing up that image, that symbolic image from the Vedas.
The same image is used many times, no? Cows going in hidden in the caves.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, it's a persistent or recurrent symbol in the Vedas.
I'm also touched by these 2 lines because I'm seeing all their pace to the mighty measure of their thoughts, led by a lo-fi chanting of the gods. And this image how I say, I experience when I'm singing a lot. What is in it that the thoughts get even supported by the chanting of the gods or by the divine chanting.
Yeah, this mantra echoes these vibrations from that realm.
Religious affiliation to Veda. If you were to look at this just symbolically, it's this dream state. And that repetition of the word vague, I mean, it like really impressed upon me that all of these images were incredibly unsubstantial. They were not grounded. They're vague. I mean, vague means it might be, it might not be. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, that experience must be like that, right? And it's interesting how he captures it, encapsulates it and puts it down here for us, or for all eternity to kind of see.
Basically, it's describing the twilight. Twilight, the dawn and the twilight time. Everything is vague, everything is unclear, nothing can be grasped. And of course, the cows are moving with the rhythm of the God's music. Beautiful image.
Yeah, and just the image, the sight of that. I mean, we can imagine a very early morning in a pasture somewhere and seeing, this herd of cows moving quietly through the mist. I mean, it's just such a beautiful image. Okay, let's continue. You see.
But nothing there was fixed or stayed for long. No mortal feet could rest upon that soil. No breath of life lingered embodied there. In that fine chaos, joy fled dancing past, and beauty evaded settled line and form, and hid its sense in mysteries of hue. Yet gladness ever repeated the same notes, and gave the sense of an enduring world. There was a strange consistency of shapes, and the same thoughts were constant passers-by, and all renewed unendingly in its charm, alluring ever the expectant heart, like music that one always waits to hear, like the recurrence of a haunting rhyme. One touched incessantly things never ceased, a skirt of worlds invisibly divine. As if a trail of disappearing stars, there showered upon the floating atmosphere colors and lights and evanescent gleams that called to follow into a magic heaven. And in each cry that fainted on the ear, there was the voice of an unrealized bliss.
Thank you. Let's pause. So he keeps describing this world and how nothing lasts, its beauty, its joy and delight, its scenes, the sights, the sounds. Everything has this wonderful charm, but doesn't last, but keeps repeating over and over, like the recurrence of a haunting rhyme. Colors and lights and evanescent gleams. Evanescent are fleeting gleams that call to follow into a magic heaven. As if they're calling one into that ideal world. Let's continue. Helmut.
An adoration reigned in the yearning heart, a spirit of purity, an elusive presence of fairy beauty and ungrasped delight, whose momentary and escaping thrill, however unsubstantial to our flesh, and brief even in imperishableness, much sweeter seemed than any rapture known, earth or all-conquering heaven can ever give. Heaven, even young, and earth too firm and old, delay the heart by immobility. Their rapture of creation lasts too long. Their bold formations are too absolute, carved by an anguish of divine endeavor. They stayed up sculptured on the eternal hills, or quarried from the living rocks of God, win immortality by perfect form. They are too intimate with eternal things, vessels of infinite significances. They are too clear, too great, too meaningful. No mist or shadow soothes the vanquished sight, no soft penumbra of incertitude.
Thank you. In those first lines, he brings in some additional qualities of that realm. And adoration reigned in the yearning heart, and a spirit of purity and elusive presence of fairy beauty and ungrasped delight. And he contrasts it with our world, but also the heavens, that this elusiveness gives it a a sweeter charm than is possible here on earth, where the forms are too firm, too enduring, and the same in the heavens, apparently. But here, everything is fleeting, only lasting for a moment, and it disappears. But that momentary beauty calls one to some kind of deep divine bliss. And then there's the interesting image of the earth carved by an anguish of divine endeavor. They stand up sculptured on the eternal hills, or quarried from the living rocks of God, win immortality by perfect form. So he's describing that divine beauty here on earth, but it's won through long, hard endeavor, and then lasts like statues, sculptures carved into the eternal hills. So he's contrasting that with these evanescent gleams and notes of beauty and charm in that world. But it gives maybe that deeper significance for our world too, that physicality of our world enables the beauty to last, to remain here. We'll continue.
This only touched a golden hem of bliss, the gleaming shoulder of some godlike hope, the flying feet of exquisite desires, on a slow trembling brink between night and day. They shone like resistance from the morning star, satisfied beginnings of perfection, first tremulous imaginings of a heavenly veil. They mingle in a passion of pursuit, thrilled with a spray of joy too slight to tire. All in this veil was shadowed forth, not limed like faces leaping on a fan of fire, or shapes of wonder in a tinted blur, like fugitive landscapes painting silver mist. Here vision fled back from the sight, alarmed, and sound sought refuge from the ear's surprise, and all experience was a hasty joy. The joys here snatched were half forbidden things, timorous soul bridals delicately veiled, as when a goddess' bosom dimly moves to first desire, and her white soul transfigured, a glimmering hidden crossed by fairy gleams, trembles to expectation's fiery vant, but nothing is familiar yet with bliss.
Thank you. Let's pause. Sri Aurobindo continues illustrating this same character of the world here, this fleeting character. He can use so many different images and to describe that. Like faces leaping on a fan of fire, or shapes of wonder in a tinted blur, like fugitive landscapes painting silver mists. He could continue going on and on describing this beauty that doesn't last. Here, vision fled back from the sight, alarmed, and sound sought refuge from the ear's surprise. It's as if the moment one catches a glimpse of these beauties, they run away, or the sounds seek refuge from the ear that surprises them. And all experience was a hasty joy. The joys here snatched were half forbidden things. Yeah, it's as if they're like too beautiful to grasp, so they're. And then he uses this next image, timorous soul bridles, delicately veiled, as when a goddess bosom dimly moves to first desire, and her white soul transfigured. Timorous is like shy, timid. So like a timid bride with her veil over her face, and then her heart trembles a little bit with desire, and her white soul is transfigured. So beautiful. So we'll continue.
All things in this fair realm were heavenly strange, in a fleeting gladness of untired delight, in an insistency of magic change, past vanishing hedges, hurrying hints of fields, mid swift escaping lanes that fled her feet. Journeying she wished no end, as one through clouds travels upon a mountain ridge and hears, arising to him out of hidden depths, sounds of invisible streams. She walked besieged by the illusion of a mystic space. A charm of bodiless touches felt and heard, a sweetness as of voices high and dim, calling like travelers upon seeking winds, melodiously with an alluring cry, as if a music old yet never knew, ever knew, moving suggestions on her heartstrings dwelt, thoughts that no habitation found, yet clung with passionate repetition to her mind, desires that hurt not, happy only to live, always the same and always unfulfilled, sang in the breast like a celestial lyre. Thus all could last, yet nothing ever be.
Thank you. Pause. So we see, again, the same characteristics. Describe the first sentence there of 3 lines. He just states what it's like. All things in this fair realm were heavenly strange, in a fleeting gladness of untired delight, in an insistency of magic change. And then in the next longer sentence, he again uses various images to describe this. Like swift escaping lanes that fled her feet, journeying, she wished no end. And then as one through clouds travels upon a mountain ridge and hears arising to him out of hidden depths sound of invisible streams, she walked besieged by the illusion of a mystic space, a charm of bodiless touches felt and heard, a sweetness as of voices high and dim, like calling like travelers upon seeking winds. All these beautiful images of some kind of fleeting sounds and sights. And then thoughts that no habitation found, yet clung with passionate repetition to her mind. And then desires that hurt not, happy only to live, always the same and always unfulfilled. And then the last 1-line sentence, thus all could last, yet nothing ever be. And it's through this fleeting yet repetitious nature of things in this realm. Thus all lasts through this repetition, this recurrence, but nothing ever lasts long enough to really be. Where? Yeah. Yeah, again, he doesn't really specify. The subject is probably Savitri, unless he's referring more generally to the nature of this place. Did you want to read? Okay. Then Netya. In this beauty as of mind made visible.
Okay, thanks. In this beauty as of mind made visible, dressed in its rays of wonder, Satyavan before her seemed the center of its charm, head of her loveliness of longing dreams, and captain of the fancies of her soul. Even the dreadful majesty of death's face and its somber sadness could not darken nor slay the intangible lustre of those fleeting skies. The somber shadow, sullen, implacable, made beauty and laughter more imperative. Enhanced by his grey, joy grew more bright and dear, his dark contrast edging ideal sight, deepened unuttered meanings to the heart. Pain grew a trembling undertone of bliss, and transience immortality's floating hem. A moment's robe in which she looked more fair, its antithesis sharpening her divinity, a comrade of the ray and mist and flame. By a moon bright face, a brilliant moment drawn, almost she seemed a thought mid floating thoughts, seen hardly by a visionary mind, amid the white, inward musings of the soul. Half vanquished by the dream happiness around, awhile she moved on, an enchantment soil, but still remained possessor of her soul. Above, her spirit in its mighty trance saw all, but lived for its transcendent task, immutable like a fixed, eternal star.
Thank you.
End of Canto.
This first line, it's kind of suggestive. In this beauty as of mind made visible. In some sense, we might think of any kind of world or as arising out of some cosmic mind or thought, idea of what could be. Anyway, this particular world is very characteristic of mind with its shifting thoughts that never last for long but are always continuous and moving and recurrent. And then she sees in its rays of wonder, Satyavan, and he presents the scene as its center, the center of its charm, head of her loveliness of longing dreams, and captain of the fancies of her soul. And even the dreadful majesty of death's face and its somber sadness could not darken nor slay the intangible luster of those fleeting skies. So even the figure of death is no longer so terrifying, but just seems to give some kind of edge to the beauty of this realm, made beauty and laughter more imperative. His darkness and sadness and somberness almost makes one laugh in the light of that realm. Because he's such a contrast to the beauty that's there. And pain grew a trembling undertone of bliss. Again, it kind of edges the bliss and delight of that realm with its contrast.
I think this for me is true sadness, and hence by his grave your room of light and fear. So this what it says to our world, to our perception also in daily life. Color is there and it's only fleeting, or it's contrasted and makes it more vivid.
Yeah, I think even in our own experience of the world, as we maybe grow in the spiritual consciousness, instead of these stark contrasts between good and evil, happiness and sadness, truth and ignorance, we begin to see them in one vision as two poles of a single reality. And in that way, that dark pole of the two loses something of its terror and its miserableness, that it's just seen as kind of something that's giving an edge to the delight, to the beauty that's here.
In the typal worlds where we have heavens, everything is either perfectly white or perfectly dark, and there is no aspiration. So this contrast that only on earth the soul is aspiration, it gives you more urge to progress. This contrast.
Yeah.
Even in paintings, it is only because of the presence of the contrast, and yet it is not perfect, but it is that which gives the urge to even look for more divine and more enlightenment.
Right.
And this is only on earth we have
Yeah, that, and even, the very significance and reality of death in particular, and I think he mentions it here even in this canto, that looming reality of death that comes, stimulates us, urges us to move towards some progress in our life. So it's there also for a purpose. And the darkness and the evil and the ugliness and all of these things, they urge us towards achieving, realizing that opposite pole of goodness. And then it's not just swinging out of that, but also an integration of the two. So that's the labor of our world, to integrate the light and the darkness. Can you read it louder? Sharpens the divinity. Yeah, but its antithesis sharpening her divinity. Yeah. Yeah. And then it describes Savitri again in the last 4 lines, or let's see, or in the last 6 lines. Half vanquished by the dream happiness around, a while she moved on an enchantment soil, but still remained possessor of her soul. Above, her spirit in its mighty trance saw all, but lived for its transcendent task, immutable, like a fixed eternal star. So even while she moves through this world of fleeting change, she remains possessor of her soul, and her spirit above, eternal, looks on all of this that's transpiring here in this world. So we'll stop here for today. We begin with the next canto next week.
There is a morning twilight of the gods, miraculous from sleep, their forms arise, and God's long nights are justified by dawn into happy misty twilight worlds, where all ran after light and joy and love. She slipped there far, raptured, drew more close.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.